agree with John, and I think most of my colleagues, whether they admit it or not in the legislature, that it's time for the legislature to actually do our job and restore a functioning three-branch government after sine die. I have said many times that emergency powers are corrosive, I think, to our system of government. And it's important that we give everyone a chance to have a voice on that, especially as we've seen three counties go backwards. As you know, I represent a large part of rural Pierce County, and Pierce County is now going to be going backwards. I've talked extensively with Pierce County Executive Bruce Dameyer, and he's made a few points to me. First of all, we've now had, I think, around 3 months of any vulnerable person being able to get vaccinated. So in Pierce County, as across the state, if you're a vulnerable person, you've had a long time to get vaccinated if you choose to do that. So there is a difference in the danger level compared to what we were looking at a year ago. At the same time, current statistics from the Washington State Department of Health dashboard show that our hospital capacity is very strong. I think we're at about 78% of ICUs filled. And of course, Pierce County has a good deal of emergency medical capacity there, as does Whitman County and also Calais County, which shares the distinction with Pierce County of being rolled back. And Pierce County has kind of a unique distinction because of the allocations of vaccines from the state. Sadly, it's running quite a bit behind the rest of the state in terms of vaccinations. And Executive Dameyer has asked the governor and the Department of Health to increase their allocation of vaccines. And it only makes sense if you've got a county that's struggling, even though most people that are vulnerable are vaccinated. We should allocate more vaccines to those three counties so that they can catch up and not be put behind. There's been a great deal of editorial board support for our position that we should have some legislative oversight of emergency powers. And I saw just this morning, the Columbian featured a pretty good editorial board opinion that pointed out that we're in the bottom 5 of all states in the United States when it comes to legislative oversight of the executive under emergency conditions. And Washington State prides itself on being ahead of the pack in many cases when it comes to how the government functions. And we are sadly behind. So we will be offering legislative members of both parties from Pierce County and the other counties an opportunity tomorrow, along with the entire legislature, to vote on an 8th order motion to bring a very moderate oversight bill for executive powers tomorrow. And I would hope that Democrats in Pierce County would be highly motivated to vote for, first of all, the 8th order motion so that we can consider this bill and then vote for the bill that has been out there for some weeks, plenty of time for people to look at it. And it simply says that a majority of the legislature should be required to continue emergency powers for the governor every 60 days. And certainly that cannot be threatening to Democrats. They hold the majority. They could decide whether or not they're going to make that extension. And I would ask, especially the Pierce County Democratic members of the House, to join us in that 8th order motion.
I would like to ask Representative Wilcox, can you just explain a little bit further the potential results of a motion under the 8th order of business, what that looks like, just some basic information on that. And I mean, if I recall correctly, I think its success would require a majority of member support. So if you could also just give insight into whether you think that support has been rallied at this point.
Okay, well, first of all, the bill itself has bipartisan support. Representative Chapman has signed on to the bill, so it's not just a Republican effort. And as I mentioned before, this is a very moderate effort that preserves the power of the majority in the House to decide whether or not the governor's emergency powers will continue. So it's not a power grab. It's not a tyranny of the minority situation. And going back to the 8th order, it is a simple majority. It's a procedural motion Representative Drew MacEwen will make the motion. It's not debatable. So there's not a lot of drama attached to it. But if 9 Democrats join the 41 Republicans, that motion will be passed. The next motion, and that allows bills to be brought to the floor based on simple majority vote of the legislature rather than going through rules or being assigned to committees by the speaker. The next motion would be to suspend the cutoff rules for that bill. And then the motion following that would be to move for immediate consideration of the MacEwen bill. And that, of course, would be debatable. It would be thoroughly considered and then voted on. And as I've said, there are a number of Democratic members of the House who represent Pierce County, for example, and I think may very well feel the same way that I and other legislators do. And that is that now that we have vulnerable people vaccinated, or at the very least, they've had that opportunity, we have plenty of hospital capacity, and we are continuing to vaccinate and now vaccinating the less vulnerable people that are the demographic group that are spreading now, that we ought to look at this pandemic in a different way and allow people to make their own safe choices and prevent businesses that are just limping along from being crippled one more time.